Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Seaweed Brain, a Percy Jackson podcast live from the Duat. Today, we are going to be diving back into the Red Pyramid. We have some very emotional chapters. There's a lot going on. We're going to say goodbye to our favorite cat. Stick around.
Welcome back to Seaweed Brain, everybody. Today, we are joined by returning special guest Darien from the Muses of Mythology. What's up, Darien?
Hi, it's me. I'm back.
Yay! I'm also Erica, joined as always by my co-host Carter.
Hi.
No one is randomly tuning into the Red Pyramid Chapter 30 who doesn't already know who we are, but just in case you are, that's really cool of you, and welcome to the Duat.
Listen, every episode is someone's first episode. We hope.
Well...
No, that's the thing that Stanley said about comic books that I personally don't believe or support as like a long-form storytelling medium, but...
Last week, there was a lot of juice. We had a lot of juice last week. We covered the chapters in which Sadie kind of like officially meets Anubis for the first time. Do you have any thoughts on that, Darien? Do you want to address any of that before we go forward? I wanted to give you the platform because it is such a big, arguably controversial part of this book.
It's a big controversial part of the Kane Chronicles, like as a whole, as an ongoing thing. And I think for the sake of listeners who are maybe reading along for the first time, I will withhold my thoughts for now because they are a bit spoilery. But I will say I love the concept and feel like maybe someone could have advised Riordan on the execution a little bit.
That's great. I do feel like it is true. Like, we were kind of tiptoeing around this last week that there are... How would we put this? I don't think it's too much of a spoiler to say that it's not like a totally... Like, you can't proceed from that scene in like a totally traditional linear fashion, and that's not how the book series goes about it. It's not like that is streamlined traditional romance.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this is right, that the contours of it require the rest of the series to be able to really talk about.
I am an urban fantasy girly, and so I feel like in terms of this particular plot point, have a lot of pre-programmed things that make me more inclined to be like, yeah, it's fine, wave away, don't worry about that too much.
Right.
And so I'm definitely someone who's a little bit more like, I'm very happy to talk about this and tell you why I do in fact like some of these plots, while simultaneously acknowledging, as Carter said, the contouring.
The contouring. I like that. Yeah, I like that. Before we go any further, we are like actually recording episodes slightly in advance now. Wow, who got their...
Hey, congratulations. Oh, that feels so good.
Just for like maybe a week. But I do want to thank our sustaining patrons because y'all are the bomb diggity. I want to thank Izzy A, James A, Cameron H, Justin M, Dayton N for being our sustaining Patreon members. You want to come and join our Patreon.
You do.
Because we're going to talk about Severance. Because I need to talk about Severance. So hop on over to the Patreon. You know who's a member of our Patreon? Darien.
It's me. Hi.
You can come join the group chat, the Discord with us and with Darien and talk about every episode and other stuff. There's always like great recommendations going on. Really, really wonderful community. That's patreon.com/seaweedbrain.
Oh, hold on. Speaking of recommendations. So the last episode that I actually listened to while I was walking my dog this morning, it's not the most recent episode before this one. It'll be the one before the one that was before this one. Y'all mentioned wanting recommendations for any Odyssey.
Yes.
Yes.
And I'm sure this has already been poured on you, and I'm sure thousands of people will be like, we need this, but I wanted to say it out loud publicly. I would absolutely love to hear y'all talk about the Epic the Musical concept album series.
So many people ask us about this. And I'm like, yeah, I know about Epic. I obviously know about Epic. I know Jay. Like,
it's great and fun, but also
on the list.
Perfect. Yeah. But mostly it's like not just like, this is the thing I like, I want you to talk about. It's like, I would so value you two in particular with your fields of knowledge and experience. Study was what I wanted. Study and knowledge is nutty. And experience, I feel like it would be like so insightful and appreciative. And also there's just a ton of really great animatics.
Yeah. I mean, do we get Jenny to join the conversation?
Yes.
Or do we try to have like a bird's eye view, like external critic conversation about
I don't know. That's
it?
on to you. This is your podcast. You will have to make the call for yourself.
Yeah.
But I want to hear y'all talk about it.
You know what? I'll put it on the list.
Someone has in the interim suggested that we talk about Journey to the West, which
Ooh.
is obviously not the Odyssey, but they were like, well, for some people, it is the Odyssey. Journey to the West, of course, being the story of the Monkey
Mhm.
King, that is kind of like the equivalent, like, Ubertext journey
Mhm.
tale of like China.
I think that'd be fun. Let's do it. There's honestly not that much stuff on the list right now.
Yeah.
So
Oh, also the Odyssey episode of Wishbone.
the Odyssey episode, people have recommended like a lot of like very specific miniature
Yeah,
stuff.
you two don't know what Wishbone is, do you?
No, what is that?
It was a PBS program that was like kids literature introduction, and it was about this little dog, and his name was Wishbone. And when the human characters were having problems, he'd be like, "This reminds me of Sherlock Holmes. This reminds me of the Odyssey." And then you'd get scenes from Sherlock Holmes or the Odyssey with the little dog dressed as the protagonist.
Wait, this is so cute. I've never heard of this before. But the dog costumes are great.
Oh, he's so charming. I love Wishbone. I grew up watching this. Sorry, my earlier comment of like, oh, y'all don't know what this is. That was more of me remembering age differences because I had the exact same experience on my podcast when I mentioned Wishbone to my co-host and brother DJ, who is again my brother. And so I feel like you and I have a lot of the same media experiences, and then it turns out we don't when there is a 6-year age gap. That maybe your brother didn't also watch Wishbone.
That's one of those like kids' children's show generations are actually like pretty
Yep.
compact. I
This
think.
was like of the Reading Rainbow Mr. Rogers era. And yet while Reading Rainbow and Mr. Rogers has like maintained a slight memification pop culture presence, Wishbone hasn't. And that's okay. That's
Yeah,
okay.
it's tough. But also like with Reading Rainbow, like it's maintained a presence, but like could I tell you what the format of Reading Rainbow is? No. I just know like it's a thing and the host was this person who I could recognize from the posters in the library.
LeVar
And
Burton.
that's it. LeVar Burton. Exactly.
Where did we last leave off? Because I did actually abandon the previous episode, so I don't know where we last left off.
I know, it was so strange. I genuinely at the end was like, I hope I haven't forgotten to like, oh my god, I forgot to ask Phoebe to plug all of her stuff. I think
Whoever's
people
listening to
know
this
that
and doesn't know who Monster
Mhm.
Donut is, they're wrong.
you said Monster Donut, but we didn't give the people the ats, you know, or like the like, oh, what podcast platforms can you look on for Monster Donut?
It's true
All of
because
them. All
Phoebe's
podcast
at is like
platforms.
my favorite of all ats. Phoebe's at on Twitter is at dramaturg, but DRAW because Phoebe draws
Very
and is a professional
good.
dramaturg.
That
Yes,
was the
do follow
gag.
Phoebe.
Like when I found out that Phoebe was a professional dramaturg, that was like actually a gag because I watched Smash.
We grew up
and I know
watching
that that's
Smash.
like the highest profession that anyone can aspire to. But
It's funny because now that I am an adult who works in musical theater, nobody actually thinks of dramaturgs that way, but I do. And everyone in our generation does because we were raised on Smash.
well, I don't know if everyone in our generation was raised on Smash, but I take your point. Did you see Bowen Yang's SAG Award speech that was just reciting the opening lines of Let Me Be Your Star?
No. I've said it before, I'll say it again. If Bowen Yang was on SNL when we were like 10 to 15, I would be a completely different person. As in, I would have like no insecurities. I would be like stunningly self-confident with no people-pleasing tendencies. Like, I would be a superhero version of myself if we had Bowen Yang on TV during my formative years.
Anyway, where we last left off without Erica for due to extenuating circumstances was in chapter 29. We were with Carter. Well, first of all, we had just met Anubis. We'd cover that part. But then in Carter's POV, we are traveling through Texas very quickly, trying to get to our destination. Less than 24 hours left. And we get a message from Zia telling us that she's offering us an opportunity to rendezvous with her at Las Cruces, I believe it's called, a town in New Mexico, because she's warning us basically that the House of Life is here to try to stop Carter and Sadie, and she's trying to figure out a way if she can maybe broker some sort of agreement, solution, collaboration, and this is how she's trying to lay out the path to that. So we have that from her, and we're proceeding further towards our destination, which I don't like. I do feel like Phoebe in the last episode was like, this book has so many mini quests. And I genuinely, it's at the point where like, I know we introduced the idea of what we're doing at some point, but I can't remember if it was in the last chapter, honestly. The setup for this is that we are trying to go to El Paso, to the Rio Grande, because we're trying to summon Nephthys. Why are we trying to summon Nephthys? Who is Nephthys? Do people remember these things? I don't know. Nephthys is one of the like 5 Egyptian deities who is
She's
like
the one we
a
haven't.
part of the
Okay, hold on.
yet.
Also,
she's the
you
only
had a
demon days deity we
6-month
haven't met.
gap. So I think you
We
were
also
also
have
allowed
had
to
a
be like, I
6-month
don't remember
gap.
this. It's like, yeah, because you
I didn't remember Darien came on the podcast to talk about this book.
I was going through the outlines, and for both of them, I was like, okay, I know there's some questions we asked first-time guests for the Red Pyramid, but I'm like pretty sure that Darien and Phoebe have both come on. Let's go through our
let's just
podcast
double
feed and see if
check,
this
and thank
true.
God.
And we did confirm it.
That's fair.
Yes, so we're trying to find Nephthys because the idea, so like the like high level thing that we're trying to do right now is we're trying to get all of the ingredients for this spell to defeat Set. One of the ingredients we just got with Anubis, it is the Feather of Truth. One of the other ingredients we're going to need is Set's secret name. And so the theory of the case right now is that we're going to try to find Nephthys because Nephthys was of these siblings who also had all these other relationships and different host iterations and such. Like Nephthys is like the one of these other 5 deities who's the closest to Set. She was married to Set in the kind of like most famous telling of the relationships of these people. Like when Set like kills Osiris, Nephthys is married to him. So we're going to try and find her and see if she wants to help us, although that also seems like maybe it's an open question because she's kind of unpredictable and we like don't even know who she's being hosted by, if she's being hosted by anybody, where she is, how she's going to feel about this whole situation. But that's what we're doing right now. We're trying to get there.
This is such a horrible tangent, but whenever we talk about the actual, like, most important retelling of the story of when Set kills Osiris, all I can think about is Queen Regina in Once Upon a Time doing the most important flashback of the show, which is walking in to the wedding and crashing. It's the wedding, right?
Sorry, I'm late.
Yes,
Dun, dun, dun,
in,
dun.
The
while the stained glass
cameras.
and like banging open the double doors. Like that's what I think about. Set kind of like fabulously storming in to like destroy everything in the box
Dramatic
situation. And it's like the most important flashback that we keep thinking about and keep revisiting. And so that's all I can picture every time.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Entering Storybrooke.
Welcome back to Entering Storybrooke, a podcast that shall not be named that we once did. Anyway, continue. I can't stop visioning Set as Regina.
That's so good.
Yeah.
That's the energy, though.
Because it's like a
That
big
is
party
the
and there's a bunch of
energy.
people around and he's just being a diva.
And like no one's happy to see him.
Yeah.
And also he like does already have relationships with literally everybody
everyone
there. In the
there.
same way that Regina also
Exactly.
has like a personal connection to everyone.
It's not like Maleficent, who's like not connected to anybody but showing up at this party.
Yes. Okay. So that's the context. At the beginning of chapter 30, Bass keeps a promise. Still Carter's POV. We wake up in El Paso at the top of a mountain, not near the river at all, because Bass is a cat and wants to descend to the site of action.
Prepared to pounce.
Prepared to pounce. We are prepared to pounce, descending down to the river. There was this actually like, I genuinely like the first time I was rereading through this, I was like, I don't know if this is supposed to be a joke or like a real profound statement. And I'm leaning on profound statement, but also like it is kind of funny. When like they're getting there, I think is it Horace? Is like, I've been here before. And like this is a sentiment that resonates with everybody. And Carter's like, oh, you haven't been to the Rio Grande. Like you haven't actually done this before. But then as they actually get there, he's like, wait, actually, is there not a greater sense in which all river valleys are fundamentally the same? And we're just like, he's like kind of like ascending to the astral godly plane of being like, actually every retelling of the story is fundamentally the same. And I am just playing my part as a host in this intergenerational story that's just happening constantly. And we are in the same place.
That was awesome. I love that.
I not consider that, but yeah.
He makes this like silly joke about Mexican food that I didn't care for that much before like succumbing to the like, actually, yes, we have all been here before moment that is kind of like setting the tone in an interesting way for this, where like there's some humor peppered in, but we're like I feel like we're settling into like spooky but also dramatic gravitas mode for this chapter. Like things are kind of like settling in. We're getting a greater sense of epicness and danger as we're going down to the river.
I am also sorry to say that the best part of Carter's chapters is Horace right now. He's so funny. And I'm sorry to say it.
I was just shading Horace. I was just saying the opposite. In this chapter, I guess he does have a little bit more oomph. Last chapter, I feel like he was really boring. Do you disagree? I was like the voice.
I think it's this chapter that it's funny, especially when they're like fighting with
Sobek.
Because like I guess it's like what Carter's giving changes maybe. Like Horace is like funny in like sort of a stuffy, weird straight man way only when there's something else to bounce off of.
I think Horace is starting to come out of his shell in this chapter, and we're starting to see some of his personality more as he interacts with his like extended family, and it's humorous to me.
He's funnier when they're like contrasts. Like I think he like
Yes.
like sometimes his exact same types of lines can come off as like absurdist, unique, but like when Carter is kind of like not really, I don't know, when Carter's like being a little too serious, then it just comes off as like flat to me when it's like the two of them giving both similar-ish things and not having the right amount of interplay difference between them. He's funnier now. I agree. So we've descended. We're like at the river now, like wading in, trying to do this summoning ritual. And yet again, something else that Carter is being left out of. Sadie and Bass apparently can like hear her. It's like difficult. So they keep trying to like shut him up and listen really closely and look into the magical reflecting waters of the Rio Grande. And Carter's just like off on the side being like, screw me. I got like...
I acutely think I dislike this very stark divide of like Carter does combat and Sadie does magic. Because I feel like it means that when we are in a Carter POV, especially in the first book, we don't get to feel like we're part of the magical, mythological stuff because
he's just doing Avatar.
Yeah. And that's frustrating because I also think it's a really weird but he's hosting Horace, who's also very important. Like Horace, who is part of all this as well. And so it read is in terms of like a magic system. I didn't love it.
I haven't thought about that as like a structural kind of annoyance that is how it works out, as opposed to the fact that Carter just can't do anything at this point in his character development. And so he gets left out of everything because he's just not attuned. He's not attuned to the way that Sadie is.
It's not like everything, but like if we're doing the POV switch, having like the perception issue, I think really is the big one where it's like, you can't have him like not be a part of any
Carter
of these
negative
conversations.
5 on perception checks.
Yeah, it's the DM even looked at that thing and like, how did you do this so badly? What did you roll?
Yeah. Carter's rolling badly, and he has negative
the stats.
Yeah, he's bad stats for perception and for insight. He's got good strength though. Like
good strength though.
Yeah. Like I think like the idea conceptually of being like, okay, we're gonna have like a warrior set of powers and a warrior like deity, and then we're gonna have the like wily, wise trickster woman. And like I think the idea of like juxtaposing those things against the personalities that Carter and Sadie have is like something that makes a lot of sense. And like initially was getting me through a lot of the like, oh, Horace, big strong man of it all. Like it didn't seem as strange to juxtapose that against Carter being kind of like a, like laced
by
up
the books,
nerd,
logical,
yes, well read, etc. But now we're getting to a point where it's like I am a little like
it's time for Carter to get it going.
Well, let him see something. Like let him not get thrown to the side in every conversation.
Yeah. He does see something at the river.
He does see something at the river. Yes, Bass or Woke Queen is pointing out for us that like there are certain things that we're going to notice.
This is a very interesting addition. Yeah.
Yes. Specifically, Carter is sort of like off while they're trying to commune with Nephthys, looking at this family of migrants trying to cross the border. And there's this like paragraph long description of like Carter's sort of, I guess, emotional reaction seeing this family. And like he's like very interested in like observing the like economic need. And his like conclusion at the end of that paragraph is basically like everyone agrees to just let everybody do what they're doing. Everybody's trying to just do their best. And we're going to keep it pushing. And there is also like when Bass is also like laying out like threats that they might face, it is interesting that like her list of threats, Woke Queen Bass, is giving us she like lists a lot of natural things, and then she also specifically mentions border control and human traffickers as like foes that we might encounter in this experience. Let's wind it back a little bit. This book was written in 2010. In 2010. I don't know what people remember about the immigration discourse in 2010. It was different. It was a different time where the Democratic Party was like not even necessarily as pro-immigration polarized as most people listening to this podcast might think of it, where like everybody was constantly trying to get to this like grand bargain that involved, of course, sensible militarization procedures around the borders. And I don't know. I like having not been like an adult at that time is difficult to like really like
Mhm.
contextualize and historicize it, but this feels like perhaps it was like more of a statement than maybe people will read it as today when it's really polarized, but that polarization makes it such that like it would be really common for like every sort of like thoughtful children's book writer to have like more or less the same way of characterizing this
Mhm.
type of situation.
Woke
Yeah,
Queen
I like
Bast,
the
woke Queen Brick.
but I like when Carter, like, he is, like, observing them very closely, but it is because he's just trying to make sure this isn't anything supernatural that's gonna sneak up on him. And as soon as he deems that, and the father who's with their partner and young girl going across the river, he's also, like, watching Carter, and they both decide, "You know, we have bigger issues than each other, so whatever you're doing, I don't need to be a part of that. That's
Mhm.
not my priority right now." Oh, and then we
Yeah.
spend several pages thinking they got eaten by a crocodile.
This is sort of the like horror writing component
Mhm.
where like the family disappears and the whole time like there's like a lot of this chapter that is Carter just like wallowing in his spidey sense being like everything is wrong. Something is
Mhm.
about to attack. We're at a river. What's in the rivers? Like what did Egyptians fear when it came to the water? And like we're like really like
Murky
everything is
water is scary.
it feels like the moment of like being on the uphill portion of a roller coaster where like we're getting there so slowly and you can feel every ratchet up of the tension being like, okay, rivers. What's in the river? Is it a hippo? Is it a this? Is it a, until the moment where and then the family disappears and then until we finally literally see the crocodile emerge from the water, it feels like I don't know. There's such a like very very like piecewise deliberate like
Mhm.
be more tense, be more tense, be more tense until the battle starts.
I was picturing Sobek as the giant animated crocodile from The Princess and the Frog. Even though he's described as being like humanoid, you know, I was just thinking Lyle, not Lyle. That's the other crocodile.
Louis.
Louis.
Mhm.
Lyle is the other crocodile. Ooh,
Mhm.
that Constance. You know what? You did well in that movie. Let me
Constance
not
Wu
say
was in
anything
the
else.
Lyle the Crocodile movie.
She surely was.
The one
Out
where
singing
Shawn
Shawn
Mendes
Mendes
was
with
Lyle.
ease, might I add. um, anyway, yeah, we do get from the conversation before the attack comes and things start to go awry that like Nephthys is in a sleeping host.
Mhm.
What? What? What?
Who's the one who says that? Who says that?
It's Bast and Sadie, like they're both listening in, and they're both. It seems like Nephthys is also communicating with them in ancient Egyptian, maybe because like they're both like Sadie makes this comment about like I don't know how to translate this word
Yeah.
into English. Is it like captured or something? And what they settle on is that Nephthys is in a sleeping host,
A sheltered
Now, what
sleeping
the
host.
hell does that
sheltered
mean?
sleeping host. What does that mean? Who could
Mhm.
it be? Because we also like what we had about the lore about these hosts so far is that like everyone hosting one of these five deities should have been at the British Museum on
Mhm.
Christmas Eve when the explosion happened. Who, like, there weren't that many people there, and like, how many of them could have possibly, like, how many of them are like out of commission now? All the people who we know were there are like actively roaming around doing things,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Unless,
Unless.
unless,
Sheltered. I mean, the thought that comes to mind, and which we will then spend a bunch of time talking about, is Zia being the sheltered one, but sleeping doesn't make a lot of sense to us at
Mhm.
this moment. What that means?
well, okay, like right
This book
now,
is
what
so
we have
good.
with Zia is that Zia is a Shabdi conspiracy theory, right? So
Yeah,
we're
which
trying
Zia
to,
is a Shopti conspiracy theory, but she is also like a sheltered, protected
in the
soul.
sense that she's a Shabdi, so yeah,
No, in
yeah.
the sense that no, separate from the Shopti theory that like Iskandar has been sheltering her and like protecting
I see what
her,
you mean.
Mhm. Mhm.
and that she would be then a host for Nephthys because she was there at the British Museum.
She was there, yeah. Because, like, I mean, it seems also like they haven't made this explicit. It seems like there's some sort of like gender component to this as well. That like so far we've only seen hostings that are like gender concordant. So like I
Yeah.
don't know if we're thinking about Desjardins as being a potential host of Nephthys, but it seems like no, based on what we've seen
Mhm.
so far. But that could that could just be biased. We've only seen
I didn't even
4
think about that. Yeah,
hostings.
I
Maybe
didn't have
Amos is
that.
a host of Nephthys, but these are just not questions that we're really asking ourselves. And really, like at this point,
And you know
this
who we
is
haven't even considered yet is the guide, the museum guide, who was helping us get to the Rosetta Stone.
Yeah.
yeah, maybe it's like a
For all we know,
random like security
sleeping
guard.
mortal
Mhm.
with the blood of the
Um,
pharaohs. Yeah,
They're super far. It says they're far away.
yeah, yes. Um, And there does seem to be some sort of language about, like, we're going to find out more information. Like, Nephthys can't tell us everything we need, but, like, might be on board, and we have to... Basically, there's, like, a delay mechanism. We might get the secret name from Nephthys, but not right now. Crocodiles are attacking. Fight scene. Carter seems like he's doing pretty well. Sadie is immediately basically out of commission through a surprise attack. And so it is Carter and Bast in their holographic avatar warrior projections fighting these two crocodiles until Sobek appears.
With his little trumpet.
Immediately, okay, Sobek, when Carter does his description, it is basically of like a crocodile person who, I think they said head of a crocodile. Carter describes him as having plates. Did anybody else find this a little strange? Like, I know what they meant because I know what the definition of plate is.
Yeah.
Would Carter refer to those as plates?
Oh, you're talking about his braids?
Yes. But Carter is written as describing Sobek's hair as in plates rather than like being in braids or like referring to a more specific braiding hairstyle. I found this
plates
it's not worth
always
harping
feels
on.
to
I was
me like historical. Like you describe
picturing like a woman
old-timey braids as being
like
plated.
Amsterdam,
I think like American
in the
Girl
1700s.
dolls.
Yes.
Yeah. That word to me is like literally just for American Girl dolls getting their hair plaited.
According to the Oxford American Dictionary, it is mostly a British term also. I don't know. I was confused by this, but his hair is in braids. You know, like we don't have to keep talking about it. He's also apparently really sweaty, and he says at some point later on that Sobek's sweat creates the rivers of the world.
And Carter's like never going in a river ever again.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the RiordanFandom.com art, which appears to be like the official art for this character.
Love it.
Sobek is hot. What is going on here? Sobek is like, first of all, yeah, sweating with like river juice, but also just like ripped to hell. Ripped to the doo-wot.
Ripped to the doo-wot.
Wow.
You know, he looks like that one alien that Captain Kirk had to fight. Or he built the bazooka.
Oh, sure. I know things about Star Trek now, guys. Are you proud of me?
So proud.
Working on it.
When Googling to find this, I was also reminded that there is a book that we have not covered, but will cover after we do the Kane Chronicles, entitled Son of Sobek. That is the Greek-Egyptian crossover. So worth paying, I guess, extra close attention to Sobek and what he has going on here. He appears. Bast's first reaction to him, I found this, I don't know, like, we're meeting all these people for the first time. I don't know Sobek like that. Her reaction to him is to refer to him as a traitor and to emphasize that he is supposed to be serving the king. He's failing in his duty to Ra. And this is like a point of like actual, it seems, ideological confrontation between them, where he basically is saying like, Ra's gone, power is power. Why not serve Set?
Horus can't do shit right now, so...
And this is, I guess, where it gets funny. In Horus's internal monologue, is Horus is basically saying, he's saying the same types of things to Carter. He's like, Sobek only responds to power. You need to, like, go up to him and, like, slap him. Or, like, rough him up a little bit, and then this won't be a problem anymore. He'll like, be
just
okay
go
with
fight
us.
the biggest guy in the yard.
Yeah, very much that vibe. Like, he's only going to respect you if you rough him up a little bit. But we apparently are not able to sufficiently rough him up because we're still having to fight him. And Sobek and Bast are really getting into it. And Sobek is like, might I say, like, pretty OP in this context.
Yeah.
We're like fighting him when he's
he's
a
ripped
river.
as hell.
He's ripped as hell.
He has like water healing capabilities.
Bathing in his own sweat juices.
Yeah.
I hate that so much, Erica. Those words you just said.
His eyes are covered in mucus and he's just bathing in his own jelly. And that's what gives him his
also,
powers.
Like, before we get into the divinity, crocodiles are really scary. Like, hippos are scary as well.
Scary.
But like, if we're talking, like, if you've heard reports about what saltwater crocodiles are up to in like Australia, Southeast Asia, it is demonic. It is some of the scariest animal activity stuff you will hear about. They're humongous, and they will like. Bass is sort of like trying to describe Sobek's techniques. Also, they're saying like you can't let him touch you. He'll like drag you down, drown you, like rip you up under the water. Like, it's really taking us there. We're quite afraid.
The family did not get eaten. For anyone who's just listening and not reading, to be clear, but there were several paragraphs where I was like, I couldn't remember, and I'm like, oh my god, did that family get eaten? Rick, you wouldn't.
No,
they were fine.
It's time for Bass Sacrifice Part 1000.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted this chapter. I wanted to talk about Bast. I love anti-Bast.
Yeah,
She
on
she she
Bast.
sacrificed herself. They're like underwater together. There's a huge explosion and Muffin flies out. But that's kind of like we don't I guess okay, she gives us a goodbye line. But there isn't like a ton of fanfare or description.
Yeah, it's that line where she's telling, because like Sadie's out of commission, as stated earlier. Khufu is
Mhm.
taking her up because she is like concussed, bleeding
Yeah.
out of it. Carter
Mhm.
managed to summon the great avatar spirits, hawk form, and then Sobek is too strong, and even Horus is down for the count. We're not even hearing him anymore.
Mhm.
And he is out of the avatar. He cannot fight. Bass is flickering in and out of her avatar form. She's only got a little bit left, but she says, like, tells Carter to go ahead. You got to get back. You got to go with Sadie. What does she say? I should have bookmarked it there.
The line
Oh, yeah.
is go, Bast yelled, and tell your father I kept my promise.
I really like that line.
Okay, I will say, yeah. For Bast, I mean, I guess it would be weird if she gave us like a speech or something. That's not really her vibe. She's like
Cats are direct and few words.
few words, and like that really does like kind of that's the whole arc. Is her like reaching back to that origin that she has in the story. Although it is interesting, I don't know. I was just saying that wraps up the whole arc, but also in the past chapter, we had Bast give this line about how she is anti-Bast now. Like she
Hmm.
would protect the kids even if she weren't oath bound to. And this line is like harkening back to the oath.
Mhm.
Do we have any thoughts about that? That we're like not that she seems to be like leaning in this final moment into that like original like duty, honor, promise, contractual obligation
Yeah.
lens on the relationship rather than like I believe in you kids or like it's
I
been
thought
so great to get to know you or
it didn't read
something
to
more
me
personal.
it didn't read to me as a slight against their personal relationship. It read to me as we have just discovered her whole like dark secret, like the thing that is embarrassing to her, which is that she ran away from her
Yeah.
posted duty, that she broke
Yes.
that duty. And so this is her in a way, I thought, in her like potentially final moments, trying to retroactively right that wrong and say, I
Oh,
may
for
have
sure.
failed on
Yes.
that original assignment, but I am succeeding at this one.
Yes.
And just in the previous chapters, she had also ran when Anubis scared her. And so that was a thing in the
Yeah.
previous one that she was reflecting on and ashamed of, that she felt she had failed again. And now with these kids that she cares about so much.
Mhm.
And I was reading it and I was realizing, like, I totally thought this event was from Sadie's perspective. Like, I thought this was a Sadie chapter when Bass is gone, because that feels
Uh-huh.
like they have such a close bond. Like, why wouldn't it be from Sadie's perspective? But I actually really like that it was done in a Carter chapter, that
Yeah.
Bast tells Carter, go get Sadie and get out of here. You be safe too, because I think it really underlines that she cares for both of them. It's not
Yeah.
just Sadie and now Carter is here too. Like, she genuinely loves and is going to protect both of them. And in
Yeah.
this, like you said, she is retroactive, like trying to address when she ran away from her duty to fight Apophis. And then again, trying to make up for when she ran away from Anubis by getting into the water. She is a cat. She said so many times,
Mhm.
I don't like the
Yeah.
water. I'm a cat. I hate the water. And also, that is a crocodile and that is terrifying.
Yeah.
So she is going to dive into the water and she is going to sacrifice herself to protect her kittens. And I
Yeah.
love that. And it's so sad. And not only that, but she also protects Muffin.
Yes.
Because also, and then the pendant disintegrates.
Yeah. That was really it was tough.
And I realized that the pendant, Bast was never in the pendant. The pendant is
Yes.
not magical. Like, Bast is in Muffin. Bast has been hanging out in Muffin for the past decade. The pendant was literally just to communicate to us, the reader, that Bast is gone now.
Yeah, I mean it's that, but like there also might be this greater valence of like the pendant is a symbol of like Bast's power, where she's not
True.
residing in
Yeah.
it, but that like the implication I feel like is like Bast is so
Yes.
far gone that like her power isn't reaching into this realm anymore, which is also horrifying because like it's always difficult whenever we have these like divine deaths to really understand like okay,
Mm-hmm.
what
What does that mean?
actually are the consequences? But this one feels really consequential.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like there
Cats
is
have 9
always this
lives.
like cats
They
have
do.
9 lives. Like if she finds a way back, I'm not going to be totally surprised. But the gravity of this, it does feel like a real sacrifice with real consequences, the
Mm-hmm.
contours of which we maybe don't have like 100% grasp on.
Mm-hmm.
But it's serious. Yeah.
And it like leaves the kids like without their, and it also like kind of maybe also indicates like a short-sightedness on Bast's part. Like, yes, we need to stop Sobek, but alternatively, if you sacrifice yourself, like the kids are alone now.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting piece of like, well, I'll die to protect you. And it's like, great. But if Philip of Macedonia didn't just show up here with our long lost uncle,
Hey!
like the kids would have been alone, and without Bast around, like I think that's also an like interesting part on her as a character. Instead of taking the kids and running, she literally doesn't want to run anymore. And maybe
Yeah.
actually now was the time to run.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
almost feels like she's like a little bit queen icon. Don't get me wrong; she's so caught up in her own arc,
Mhm.
and her own fabulous arc, and like her like redeeming her. That she's maybe forgetting the bigger picture. That it is true that maybe the more productive thing to do would be to stay with them. But if this was the only option,
Yeah.
and you might as well go down in a blaze of glory with an epic final word statement: "Tell your father I kept my promise."
Because her promise was to protect the kids, right? Like
Mhm.
protect them. And so I think, sorry, I bumped the mic. So I think in regards to like going back to the concept, of like the oath and being bound to do this as a contractual obligation, I think in this moment it's less about I'm doing this because your father told me and I promised to do it, but the nature of the promise itself, which is keep you safe.
Yeah.
I am keeping you safe.
Yeah.
It's true. Philip of Macedonia arrives. He's back, and he arrives back with Amos.
And that,
Man, Rick does
yeah.
love an allies showing back up at the last second to help save the day Halloween party.
If only it was the hunters. That would have really gagged me. They're like, we were in the desert searching for this mysterious creature.
This giant crocodile. Have you seen one?
Should we take a quick break?
Let's
And then do
take a
chapter
break.
31?
Feels like a good time.
Okay, we're back. Chapter 31. I deliver a love note. We're back in Sadie's perspective. There's not a lot going on here.
Yes.
Catching up with Uncle Amos.
Mm-hmm.
Things are seeming weird. Not gonna lie. Things are seeming strange. Things are seeming strange. Usually when an adult shows up, I would say in a Riordan book, and they're saying stuff that seems a little bit iffy, we should take note of that. That maybe it's seeming a little bit iffy. He's like describing how he got here and was able to escape. And
even he's saying this is suspicious. Like he is fully saying, okay, I was trapped by Set's magic, and then eventually I wore through, but obviously Set is more powerful than me. So the fact that I was able to war through is suspicious, and probably means he let me go willingly. But I came anyway. What's that all about?
Weirdness all
telling
around.
us that Set doesn't have a host, but that he is actually like in the pyramid.
Yeah, the pyramid is kind of his host analog situation. No one else has like confirmed the details of this lore, and we haven't heard any precedent for this, but it is.
Yeah.
Based on what we said earlier, does
Okay.
that mean that Set's gender is pyramid?
Triangle. Just triangle.
Set's gender is triangle.
Not pyramid, just triangle.
Yeah,
I'll
just
be a
triangle.
little cipher.
You can go to a triangle bathroom.
Yeah, that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
I have a question about Muffin.
Yes.
Bast has been occupying Muffin as hosted by. Bast has been hosted by Muffin since she got out of Cleopatra's Needle.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Did Mama and Papa Kane bring a cat with them?
For this purpose?
Yeah, because they were going there to
smart
free
enough
her.
to do that.
They brought a cat for her.
Or maybe there was just a cat hanging out, like a street cat.
This is but we established like Muffin is a specific breed of Egyptian cat. Like she's like a Mao, right?
Is she?
Maybe
That
that's just
sounds
me
right that they
projecting.
brought a cat to host Bast. I believe that.
Because they are members of the craft. They are students of the craft. They know that they need to get the necessary ingredients and creatures to have lying around just in case of certain things.
Yeah. Anyway, that's me thinking of them going there that night with a cat. And then Mama Kane dies. So Bast and Muffin, has she been like actively controlling Muffin and in control? Like Horace is constantly like telling Carter to give him control, or has she been riding in the back seat, just like napping and chilling and letting the cat be a cat until this time? Like, how much has Muffin actually been Bast?
That is an interesting question.
I feel like their consciousnesses
Oh, maybe it's more blended.
Have been parallel, have been like running parallel the whole time, if that makes sense.
Bass is really clear that like when she's in human form, that like she's 100% like that's driver's seat.
Bast.
Like Muffin is asleep, but the rest of it,
because when Muffin sees Sadie is upset, she goes up to purr and comfort her like a good kitty. And I think if Bast was 100% in control and Muffin was never there, Muffin would not have that kind of affection for Sadie. So I wonder if, like, as Muffin, it was just like this, whatever this ideal blend of God and host is, that like this is sometimes referenced. Like, it's not necessarily a God in control and this is a meat puppet. Like, sometimes there can actually be a blend of consciousness.
That would make sense for Muffin to be the perfect host.
Yeah. I was thinking like maybe
based on what they're saying about the art.
Wait, what about the art, Carter?
That, like, the fact that Thoth is able to do that, like, exposing his ex-girlfriend art plant is, I think, implying that Muffin is, like, close to the archetypal ideal of what Bast's host is supposed to look like. Which would maybe play into this idea that, like, maybe they could share consciousness. Maybe they're just, like, a perfect one-to-one because Muffin is exactly the right type of cat. Maybe Muffin has the blood of the pharaohs.
Yeah. the actual like cats of Egypt who were there when they went from like being wild cats to being domesticated creatures over the span of this civilization. But I think also it's like because Bast used whatever energy she had left to get Muffin out of there and not let this cat drown in this river. Like I do think that maybe indicates a bond with her host.
Yeah.
Also, hear me out. Horace is not like the god of humans. You know what I mean? But Bast is the goddess of cats. So, like, in some way, this is her progeny / like, just like a piece of herself.
True. Yeah. Yes.
So her ability to maybe control that mortal form is different from the way that, like Muffin is not a godling in the way that Sadie and Carter are godlings.
Why not?
Because I think Muffin, it's almost more like, well, you are my subject. Bast is like, this cat is my subject. So this cat is going to like take on the lifelong privilege of being host to me and is going to
Do we think Sobek was like possessing a crocodile then? In the Rio Grande?
See, that's a good question. And I'm going to say no. I think that that's like in the way that Anubis's form is like his jackal-headed being. And that's just who he is. I think that that's just how Sobek is. And but maybe
because they do make
maybe
it sound
somebody
like
else saw Sobek as a hot man with a human face with a crocodile-like nose.
Maybe,
who is drop-dead gorgeous.
But in order to be in this physical, like mortal reality, they have to have a host. Like the gods just cannot manifest. They have to be anchored to something.
They were saying something similar about Anubis, right? That like when he's in a graveyard, it's like he's not really leaving the Duat in a way. He's like parallel.
Yes, that's
like
right.
Sobek is like he is all the rivers. So maybe if he's in a river,
juices.
It's because there's also this other line about like the physical manifestations where they're like, okay, Sobek is able to like. I think what they were saying about his form is trying to suggest that he isn't bound by like the limitations of the host in the same way that Bast is maybe currently not at full power.
To, like, wreck their shop because he's just literally in the thing that is identifying his existence.
Yeah, he's in his own sweat. That it's him.
So
I do be in my own sweat. That's why I'm so powerful, because I do just be in my own sweat.
It's true.
I am recording this directly after Pilates. I didn't shower. I'm in my own sweat.
And you're glowing. You look stunning, Erica.
You look ready to water
mucus. That's the mucus on my eyeballs. Thank you.
Woo! Okay. Well, Sadie's grieving. We don't have like a ton of like grieving processing for her, but she's really in her feelings, and she's like, I don't know if I can make any more sacrifices. Yeah. But
there's been so much loss.
Yeah. Sadie meets Jeb. We have to finally close the loop on her meeting Nut back. Gosh, such a long time ago.
9 months ago for y'all.
Yeah, it's been a while. She has to deliver the titular love note. Jeb, I have to say, a lot less interesting than Nut. A lot less of a character.
Yeah.
He's kind of just there, chilling, vibing, not giving us a lot to work with, but we're basically here to fill that, like, to close that loop, and also he's telling us to go to the place of crosses.
Mhm.
Now, you might remember that 2 chapters ago, Zia was like, "We have to rendezvous somewhere. Why don't you meet us at Las Cruces?"
Oh, there it is.
So really, what is Jeb doing for us here? I guess he's telling us, like, listen to Zia, take her up on that.
Yeah,
Um,
because Carter was a little bit like, I don't know. I don't really know if we should listen to Zia, honestly.
yeah,
So I guess this is like, no, you have to go. I, mm, I did, I did like the love note. I like that it was
it
like
was
a
cute.
firework and a constellation of Nut's face, and then the wind
Yeah.
rips it away. But he's like, I haven't got to see my wife in like millennia, so thank you. And I was like, oh damn it, that was really sweet. I wasn't prepared.
It's a
Jeb.
cute addition to a series of chapters that has had a lot of crushing going on.
Yes.
Yes, it was
Also.
nice to have a
Yes.
little bit of delight in
Multi-millennium
everything's been bad for a
romance.
while.
Multi-millennium.
Yeah. Yeah. The one other, like, sort of, I guess, like, vibey thing that, or how do I want to phrase this? Like, the one other, I guess, contribution that Jeb is making to our thinking and where we are with the characters at this point is that he's reminding us, like, that he is the father of all 5 of these deities, and that he
Mm-hmm.
sees value in Set. He's not going to intervene strongly. Um, because he fundamentally believes that Set is, like, as worthy of his, like, respect, care, all of that,
Mm-hmm.
as all of the other siblings, which is this characterization is kind of seesawing in a way that is a little. So I guess you could characterize it as being hard to follow, but I think that Set is just, he's, like, really hard to pin down, and he has these very different relationships with all of these different deities. Where, like, Isis sees him as this sort of, like, eternal pest, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But like, a lot of these older deities are much more chill about him, like, seem to have more of this attitude of, like, well, he's kind of raucous, but he's part of the family, and
Mm-hmm.
ultimately I don't think he's going to destroy civilization, and we're just gonna, things will take care of themselves and we'll ride it out. Which is an interesting perspective to have, layered on top of these other questions from other people about, like, whether or not Sadie should let her dad die or restore
Yeah.
civilization.
But it is like the idea of like, well, if civilization crumbles, like, well, it'll be fine. We'll write it out. Um, Geb also has a Geb also has a line of like, I miss my wife more and more with each passing millennia, which is as like a human would say, like, I miss them more and more with each passing day. I think
Mhm.
that like anchoring this very, very ancient god with like a millennia as like their way of marking time. Also, it's like
Mhm.
maybe they don't think that's such a big deal because, like, well, time. And if
Yeah,
your
yeah,
civilization falls, I've seen that happen before. What's that to phase me? There will be another.
Does this
yeah.
thinking about time also contribute to the way that we are able to perceive Anubis still as a baby, in the sense of millennia just kind of flashing by,
If you never
time
go to
flowing
Earth, it
differently
doesn't
for
count, I
him?
guess.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay, Rick, whatever you say.
That's
I
kind of
do
it,
like
huh?
one more thing I wanted to talk about just for a hot second. I know if we're out of time, we can totally cut that. But
Oh, wow. Please.
the Geb is like, "Oh, thanks for doing this favor for me. I will now give you a boon." And Sadie's first thing is like, "Save my dad."
A great boon. Sorry, Heather's
Yeah.
the brain glitch.
And he's like, "Yeah, I can't do that." And she's like, "Okay, stop set." And he's like, "I also can't do that for the reasons Carter just listed out." And she's like, "Why? What is it?" It just felt so flaky for like an Earth god,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
not very solid. And he's like, "Well, I'll give you some advice." And it's like,
And it's not, it's redundant advice.
She didn't even get to you just if you
Yeah.
wanted to tell her this, just say, "I will now do this for you," and not say, "No, not that. No, not that either." Okay, I'll just give you the answer what you were supposed to ask for. But
Yeah.
I think it also
Well,
demonstrates where Sadie's at. Where her oh my god, where Sadie's first thought is literally save my dad, and then her second thought is like, wait, can you stop the big bad thing from killing everybody? Like she still is prioritizing her dad over the world.
yeah, I guess so at this point.
But she did answer truthfully that she would ultimately save the world.
She would. And you could do both. We listen. It doesn't have to be one or the other. It could just be one then the other. There's a checklist.
That's what Percy Jackson would say.
He would say that. He and Sadie would be friends.
Or parent,
right.
daughter, right?
I just hate that.
Speaking of the different ways in which families can manifest themselves in relationships. But yeah.
I believe that brings us to the end of these chapters.
Mm-hmm.
Darien, do you have any closing thoughts to offer the listeners on this section?
I nope. Thank you for having me on, Eric. I'm so glad you texted me the other night. Was like, hey, you've read this, and I'm like, yeah, I have. Let me talk about Cat Ant. She's my favorite. I want the listeners to also know I have been recording in a room with two cats. Her name is Ida. She's a little gray cat with one eye, and Taco, who's a big black cat with anxiety.
Yeah,
they were here the whole time. Bast was with us the whole time.
Yes, she was with her progeny.
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Darien, for joining us. Will you tell everyone where they can find you on the internet?
I would love to. Dear listener, if you're like, hey, I want to hear this girl talk more about mythology and Percy Jackson and stuff, well, you're in luck. You can go over to Muses of Mythology, or my brother and co-host DJ and I talk all about mythology. We actually just spent a year talking about Magnus Chase and the Norse gods, which, Carter, I need to actually thank you so much. In an earlier episode of your run in the Duat, you talked about you compared the structure of the family systems in the Egyptian mythology and the Norse gods, and you pointed out how the Norse were so much like, we're not going to do incest, that they introduced a whole other godly family just for that not to be a thing. And I was like, oh my god, yes, exactly that. And that is literally a thread that we tugged on throughout our whole run through Norse mythology, and like brought that up a lot. So I want to thank you so much.
The threat of not having incest.
Yeah, like it's like, I bet how that was so distinctly different from like other major mythologies.
It's true.
And
yeah,
so
yeah.
Like, thank you so much because I didn't clock that weirdly. I don't know. But thank you. So we just did that, and we are about to do the Red Pyramid also. Well, the King Chronicles. We're probably just going to talk about all three of the books and then do the mythologies, because I predict it's way harder to dive into Egyptian mythology than it is to do Greek mythology. So, but yeah, that's probably up now. So Muses of Mythology, that's on all of the podcatchers. And if you're like, well, she's fun, but I don't need another mythology podcast, but what about another young adult series? Well, you're in luck. You can listen to Aragon and Back Again, where my best friend and co-host Lucia Hart and I are going through Christopher Paolini's inheritance cycle chapter by chapter, exploring them through a writer's lens as a more like mechanical story structure. Like, why do we like this based on what makes it work? You can find those anywhere, probably in the same app you're listening to this one.
All right, everybody, follow Darien. Listen to all of Darien's shows. You can technically also listen to Entering Storybrooke. Oh, and
it's still there.
We will see you guys next time for some more Red Pyramid, some more Sia. Stick around. Bye.
Bye, all.
Take care.